We're continuing in our culinary class, and now we're going into chapter 2, section 3. And now we're going to go over the basic cooking techniques, and we're going to kind of contrast the use of the stove onto the use of the microwave. So first, and I'm just going to quiz through this because you can read it through, and we talk about stove use. And first it's to learn how to control your stove, which knob turns, which burner is kind of important. And some stoves, the electric ones become a little more complicated, and the electric heating elements take a few seconds longer. Electric stoves are kind of harder to go by sometimes because they're easier actually sometimes to get burnt on because you can't see the flames necessarily in some places, right? So, and going on here, it says, beware of the size of the burners. Use large burners for large pots and pans and small burners for small pans. So those are some tips. And on to the oven. What about the oven? So it's important to know, first of all, before you preheat the oven, place your racks where you want to place them so you won't have to move the racks around when they're hot. That's a good tip. And on to, always to preheat the oven. So otherwise your recipes are not going to be right because they all go by a preheated oven. Unless the recipe says not to preheat the oven. Very rarely do they do that. So, and you place your pans near the middle of the oven where they'll get most of the heat, and onto not putting them pans, if you put two pans in, not put them so close together so that air can circulate between them in the oven to allow the heat to circulate. And do not place pans too near the oven walls either. So leave a couple inches between the pans and between the walls. And then also to stagger them. So if you have like 3 stacks of them or 2 stacks of them, stagger the pans so the air can circulate. And stagger them so one is not directly over the other. That's the best way of cooking. So on to the example about cookware. Now say that you have a baking dish that is glass or a dark pan. And usually if you have that, they'll get hotter. So basically you can decrease the oven temperature by 25 degrees if you have a glass baking dish that you're cooking in. So just to follow the recommended, recipe directions, on the temperatures otherwise. So now let's quickly go over microwaves. So microwaves are energy efficient cooking methods because in the midst of it, the nearly all of the energy, you think of all the energy used by the microwave, is absorbed by the food itself. So this makes it pretty much energy efficient. Compared to a conventional oven, a microwave uses less power to cook food. A microwave also saves time, and it cooks more than conventional ovens, sometimes 1/4 of the time that it takes. So 1/4 of the time you put it in the oven, as you put it into a stove oven, as a stove oven, the microwave is going to be 1/4 of the time. So, and it's also possible you can actually just cook it in the microwave and serve it in the same dish that you cooked it in. So these are some really pretty cool, efficient things for a microwave. So, and the microwave is very ideal for defrosting items, reheating leftovers, warming convenient foods, and even popping popcorn. But it also can be used to cook many other foods, including quick breads, cakes, meats, vegetables, and grains. So microwaves can be pretty good, except there's some downfalls. Let's see if there's any downfalls to do with microwaves. So basically, when you're cooking microwaves, you have to know there's a lot of difference in the food. The food sometimes looks blander than you do and not browner as you do in a microwave. Well, let's talk about putting the food in the microwave. So you have to, when you put the food in the microwave, you have to cover the food with plastic wrap, but use only plastic wrap. Make sure you read the directions and see that it's microwave safe. Or you can just put a paper towel. And a lot of times I have a splatter shield that's built for microwaves that you put the splatter shield, and that's pretty convenient. So when covering food with plastic wrap or a lid, create a vent. Protect, like a little vent in it for air to be released. And this it basically prevents it, basically prevents that the food the steam will be left out the pressure of the food, right? To create a vent. To prevent plastic from melting, ensure that it will not touch the food during cooking. It is also important to pierce a certain food, such as like hot dogs or potatoes, to allow steam to escape. Otherwise, they may burst. Have you ever had a potato or a hot dog burst in the oven? In the microwave oven? They do. Achieve evenly cooked food by using the following techniques. Use a circular arrangement and a rearrangement of food during cooking, kind of a circular as you put them in the microwave. Stir food from the outside edges of the container toward the middle. So when you're stirring food, and you should stir food quite often because the microwave actually cooks in little patches otherwise. And it's really nice to have the microwave on rotate the container with a turntable. So most microwaves have that now. And again, so since microwave foods don't have the same appearance, it's sometimes you have to check, it doesn't look like it's done, but it may be done. So go with a minimum cooking time because it's really easy to overcook. The standing time is important too. So when you're cooking and you go by the directions of cooking, you think, oh, maybe looks like I should cook it a little longer. Well, sometimes take it out and stir it. Otherwise, you can take it out and give it some standing time or carry over cooking time. And this is the time the microwave in which the food must be allowed to rest so the cooking can continue. During standing time, the energy contained in the hot spots move to the cold spots until the heat is evenly distributed and cooking process is complete. And it says to allow 1 to 15 minutes for standing time. And again, be aware of the color because the color cannot be an indicator of if it's done or not. And some foods do not really cook right. They don't develop a crisp texture like a lot of other foods, and the bland appearance is less appetizing than if you cooked it in the oven. So microwave safety. Let's talk a little bit about microwave safety. It says cook only in dishes that are labeled microwave safe. Why is that? Because you can put in a dish and it can become so hot that if you try to touch it, it will burn your fingers. And so it can be dangerously hot, and sometimes it even can melt containers. So you need to see if they're microwave safe. You always use pot holders anyway to remove dishes from the microwave because you can get burnt very easily. And when removing the lids or plastic wrap, when removing the tops, lift away from you to avoid the steam. So don't just look down and open up and the steam comes in your face. Open up the opposite side and let the steam out first. And never run a microwave when it's empty because this can ruin the appliance. So don't run a microwave when it's empty. Do not use metal containers in the microwave. So they will reflect the microwave and cause electrical sparking. They could cause a fire. So microwaves reflect off this metal, can bounce back and destroy the magnetic tube too. So it could actually ruin the microwave if you put metal in the microwave. And never use china or dishes, especially special china that have gold rims or metal rims. You put them in too. Again, you're going to start to spark, the sparks to go on and may ruin the microwave and may ruin the dish too. So also materials such as plastic bags and take out single containers are not safe for use for microwave cooking. So if you're bringing home a takeout and you just put it in the microwave, hey, a lot of times it will deform and melt and contaminate your food. So, don't do that. Don't bring home a styrofoam cup or something and put it in the microwave, so that's going to melt, something that will melt into your food. And be cautious when using recycled paper. This is something kind of new. Recycled paper in the microwave may contain metal flecks, and they also produce harmful fumes, and they release carcinogens, which are cancer causing. So if you're going to use recycled paper in the microwave, it's not a good deal and not healthy. So, well, that's enough about the microwave. Let's go on to the kitchen equipment. Cookware, should I say. Kitchen equipment, we start with our pans and our cookware. So there's a lot of pieces that are used. It's good to buy a whole set of pans that has a frying pan or a skillet, saucepans, sometimes various sizes of saucepans, a stock pot. A big stock pot is good, if you're cooking a soup or you're actually putting, like corn on the cob or something to steam in a stock pot. A steamer, a double boiler used for sauces and puddings, a Dutch oven. Cookware is typically made of metal or a combination of metals. So some cookware is also coated with non-stick protective finish. So you got to figure out what kind of pans do you want. And some of the non-stick kinds with a finish on, if you chip them up, then you get the little pieces of chips of the pan in your food, and that's not too good either. So you can kind of look and investigate in the kind of pans you want. It's really good to invest in a good set of cookware, at least to last, because you're going to possibly use pans quite a bit. And find the kind that would fit you. And, you don't need tons of big pans if you're not cooking for a lot of people. So also there's bakeware, and bakeware comes in various sizes and shapes. Like cake pans, they may be like rectangles, they may be square, they may be round, they may be a novelty shape. Pie pans have angled sides that come up as a pie would do. So you have pie pans. You have loaf pans, and this is designed for baking loaves of bread. Two pans that are used for like angel food cake. Bundt pans are used for bundt cakes, so they have all coffee cakes. They all have these different sizes of bakeware, and you can pick out which kind that you want. So we also have baking sheets and cookie sheets that are very important, and they can be used for like roasting vegetables and nuts and seeds too, not just baking cookies, although cookies are a good thing to bake on them. Bakeware can be made of aluminum, tempered glass, stoneware, or silicone, or other materials. So when you think of aluminum, the one thing about aluminum, it's not magnetic. It's kind of weird, but some stoves, especially in our motorhome, they have to be magnetic, so aluminum doesn't work on the stove. It's kind of weird. So just look at what they're made of. Tempered glass, stoneware, silicone now is a new thing to cook on. So in the last few years, and silicone is common for like cookie sheets and stuff. So and so you just cook, you just pick out the kind of, for what you're cooking. If you would like to have a ceramic pie plate, needed that, you do that. Or if you want an aluminum cookie sheet, you'll need that, depending on what you're cooking, right? And so just think of what you have. Is it comfortable to cook on? Is it safe to cook on? Is it comfortable to hold and work with? All these things are important when it comes to cooking equipment. Well, what about cutlery? Let's talk about knives. So knives are called cutlery. That's another name. And there's a lot of different options for knives, of course. And we always consider the material that knives are made for. So what are knives made out of? First of all, we have ceramic blades are kind of lightweight, and they have a very sharp edge and keep that edge for a long time, the ceramic knives. Which, yeah, that works, but they can chip and break if they're not cared for right. So they chip a lot. And also we have carbon steel knife blades, and they are very easy to sharpen. but they must be washed and dried soon after. So a lot of the carbon steel knives are really good knives, but if you put them in the dishwasher, they'll get little stains and rust on them. So it's best just to wash those knives by hand and put them away dry. Also we have stainless steel blades, and they're very durable knives, and they're rust resistant, but you can't sharpen them very easy at all. So the knives made of high carbon stainless resist stains and hold a sharp edge, but they're not considered to be the best option now. So the carbon steel knives are actually best because you can sharpen them. And you know what a knife sharpener, the long blade thing that you sharpen the knives on. So you want to keep your knives sharp, because dull knives are terrible to work with, aren't they? So the second consideration when purchasing cutlery is construction. The handle reveals the quality of the knife. The handle should fit your hand comfortable. The tang, that's the prong of the blade, should extend at least 1/3 of the way into the handle. And the larger knives should have at least 2 or 3 rivets joining the blade and the handle. So those are some things about knives. And knives are something you can purchase and keep for a long time. Types of knives. I didn't go over the types of knives. Types of knives. A bread knife has a blade with a serrated edge and has a blunt tip. So you know what that bread knife is, serrated edge. And a slicing or carving knife is used for cutting foods like cutting meat and poultry. A carving knife. Have you ever seen a carving knife that cuts a turkey knife, carving knife? In fact, there's also electric carving knives. A chef's knife or a French knife is perhaps the most frequently used style of knife, and it has a large triangle blade, and it's used for slicing, chopping, cubing, dicing, and mincing. A utility knife is a knife with all-purpose knife for cutting small different foods. A boning knife has a thin blade that goes in as a boning. It's ideal for trimming fat from meat. Paring knives are small, but they're very handy to use in little small tasks, including peeling and paring and slicing small fruits and vegetables. Paring knives. Kitchen shears are scissors that are designed for food preparation. So if you have some kitchen shears, make sure you just use it for food, the ones that you have with your knives, not to cut paper or anything, just for cutting food. And of course, a sharpening steel is a long steel rod with a handle that's used to sharpen knives. So it's important, the tips for knives, so here's some tips and techniques right here in your book. Slice, it tells how to slice. The slice, here's a picture of slicing. Basically to slice, here's slicing here, slice away from yourself, using a fork to hold and stabilize the large pieces of food. For smaller foods, hold the food firmly while keeping the fingers bent back so the knuckles are parallel to the smooth side of the knife. So using a bread knife or other knife with a serrated edge, use the back and forth, go back and forth and back and forth with the serrated edge, not pushing down. So peel and paring. To remove the skin from a piece of fruit, use a paring knife or a vegetable peeler. You insert the knife for the peeler, right? So let's put this up so you can see it better. These techniques here, move it down here. See the peeling? So underneath the peel of the skin, see how the peeling, and be careful there when you're doing there that you don't cut yourself though. It's very easy to cut yourself a lot of times doing the peeling motion. Snip, cut, or trim using shears. See how you do if you want to use a shear to cut grapes or cut lettuce. That's a good thing. I never thought about cutting lettuce with shears, but that could be a good way of doing it. So learn your tips and techniques for knives. Here's some more. Cube. To cut so that the pieces are uniform in size in all sizes, a 1/2 inch cubes is a slicing technique in cutting. To dice is to cut into small cubes about 1/4 inch. See how this is a cube, this is a dice. Julienne, have you ever heard the word julienne? Well, julienne is to cut food into matchstick-like pieces using the slicing technique to make them thin slices and then to cut the sides to narrow sticks. See how that is? The narrow sticks. Slice it and then cut it to little sticks. This is Julian. Chop. So what's chop? Chop is to cut the irregular sized pieces using a chef's knife. See how he's chopping with that chef's knife. Place one hand on the knife handle and the other hand on the back of the knife and use a rocking motion to chop. Mince, to chop very finely. You know, to make it very, very fine, just minced. So, some safety tips. Carry knives with the point down and the blade away from you. You know, point down, blade away from you. Don't hand somebody a knife with the blade so they'll have to grab onto the blade, right? Keep knives sharpened. More accidents happen when using dull knives because individuals are often less attentive to a task with a dull knife, and also they add force to make the dull knife do the job, which they can get hurt. So keep your knives sharpened. Use the correct knife for the job. Don't use the wrong knife, you know, for cutting bread instead of a serrated edge. You know, you use or any type of task. Use the right knife for the job, and always keep your mind on the task. Here's some, let's see. We're going to stop there, and then we'll go on to using a recipe, tips and techniques.